Cryptocurrency. Is it in a dip or it's dead? It's gotten very quiet in the crypto world. You remember when we was talking about Dogecoin, especially when we had the president and CEO of Tesla, Mr. Elon Musk, come out and say, "Hey, we're now going to start taking Dogecoin payments." We've seen all type of thing. When Bitcoin hit its all-time high, about 60 to 69,000, if I'm correct, everybody was on it. Everybody had the fear of missing out. Everybody was talking about it. Now it's gotten very quiet. So has the NFT market. So these markets gotten very quiet. I think it's the best time to start talking about it because usually, they say, I can't remember who said, I know James will probably know it, I guess today. When blood in the streets, right? That's when it's time to buy. Is there blood in the streets right now in the crypto world, or has the crypto world just been exposed for the scam that it is? So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I got a special guest that you guys and girls can see coming in all the way live from New York, also like the New Jersey. You know how that tri-state area is. He's a friend of the show. It's Uncle James. Some of you may know him as James Foytlin. But James, how you doing today, sir?
I'm doing excellent. It's great to see you.
Great to see you too. Great to see you. And that's a nice shirt you got on too, James. Did you get a haircut?
I did today. I got a haircut just for your show, just for your audience. I want to look good. I want to look sharp.
Nice. So, it's been a few months since you've been on. I like to have you, recurring every couple months to get that insight. People love to have you on. They love to see you. First, I want to say thank you for all you have done to support the book drive, the Wesley Learns book drive that has been going on. Thanks to everybody who's contributed to it to get children's books, the Wesley Learns children's book on investing, credit, insurance into kids' hands around the globe. So I want to definitely appreciate you and thank you for that. Let me give you a little round of applause for that. Now let's get into it, James. What's going on? Back in the day, you was calling it Bitcoin.
Right. Yeah.
Bitcoin, or this is a dip. What's going on in the crypto world? What do you think?
Well, like the way they talk about you're either a crypto minimalist or a crypto maximalist. And I was sort of a crypto, I don't know, what's less than minimalist. I was kind of way out there. Jamie Dimon kind of reminded me today of the other day he came out and he said that a lot of these tokens are just like a decentralized Ponzi scheme. But if you listen to his whole quote, there's about 90 seconds of it. He talks about how blockchain is a significant technology, that JP Morgan uses a lot of it, but he was concerned, he voiced concern about a lot of these, at least the way I read it, about a lot of these like altcoins and some of these things like Dogecoin that don't really have an underlying technology underneath them. I would say right now we're in a big era of uncertainty with Bitcoin, with crypto. You've had a lot of scams. You've had a lot of hacking. You've had a lot of it's gotten found out, like you said. Some of it really turned into Ponzi schemes. It may not have been planned that way, but it played out that way. You have some big issues with some of the stable coins like Tether. There's a lot of debate over whether they really have the assets or not. You have like a lot of lawsuits. You still have that XRP lawsuit with the SEC going on. I broke out the yellow pad, so that's how serious I am tonight. I would say that like this, we have a big cloud of uncertainty. The other issue and you kind of pointed at it a little bit at the beginning of the show is maybe this whole presumption, this whole idea that this decertified finance or decentralized finance, and this system of decentralized self-policing, fact-checking system, maybe it really doesn't work at all. And I was thinking about it. I would say before he was President Obama, around 2006, there was this big rave about something called crowdsourcing. And as you know, I have a news blog that I run in northern New Jersey, which is basically like local news and with some finance and stuff like that, but it's mostly local news. And in general, crowdsourcing was the premise behind the blog. We figured guys like you who live locally would go, hey, I know a lot about high school football, and I want to tell you this one team is the best team I've ever seen in my entire life, and you might submit an article or write a big comment, and I can turn that comment into a post on the blog. And if it worked, but there was some shortfalls. The idea between crowdsourcing is the theory is that a group of um, independent-minded individuals who have some knowledge of a certain area can probably come up with better solutions than, say, some very focused professional experts, quote unquote. And for somebody like me, that sounds really great because I'm always the guy who goes, all these experts you see on TV, they always seem to be wrong about everything, but they're always on over and over again. I mean, so like we used to say on Wall Street, even a broken clock is right twice a day, but there's some guys who can't even match that. They're so consistently wrong. I can't get over it. I can't believe they're still getting trotted out. Um, but anyway, the problem with the crowdsourcing becomes over time that group of independent minded individuals becomes partisan, and they become kind of a conformist blob, and they lose that flexibility, and they lose the chart, kind of like you see the way Facebook has kind of devolved. Like when Facebook first started, it was a lot of people talking about their kids and having fun and hanging out and meeting old friends and talking to their high school sweetheart and things like that. And now it's all people screaming and yelling about everything, arguing about every stupid thing you can't even believe, and it really turns a lot of people off. That seems to be the nature of the crowd.
Hmm.
So I'm wondering if this same thing is with the blockchain, for example, this decentralized. Well, if you look at a lot of the cryptos, um, much of these cryptos are held by small groups of people. I mean, Bitcoin is certainly held by a majority of it is held by a very small group of people.
I want to say this, James. Remember when everybody's like, "Oh, Bitcoin and cryptocurrency is going to be the hedge to inflation. It's going to be the hedge to the
Yes.
stock market." And now it's time to put that rubber to the road. You're like, "Hey, look at inflation's up at 9%.
Yep.
Bitcoin is not hedging.
It's going down. Yes.
It's in
And
the
it's
market is
funny.
going down. There's no hedge. What's going on? Has it been exposed?
Yes.
What do you think about that?"
Interesting. I was just watching a video with Anthony Scaramucci in it, and he
Hmm.
was talking about he runs Skybridge Capital or something like that, and they actually run sort of a small like an ETF that's has sort of crypto industry or digital asset industry companies in it. And he said that that idea that Bitcoin is an inflation hedge has now been tested and failed.
Hmm.
It's not. It's clearly, at least right now, it's not an inflation hedge. It may be someday, but right now it is not. And I kind of agree. I think that was something that I kind of thought, well, maybe because Bitcoin seemed to trade like a commodity, and I thought, well, maybe that will work, but it certainly has not worked. I look at it. There's about four basic issues that I think have maybe five that all have to be addressed. That needed to be addressed 5 years ago. That still need to be addressed.
Hmm.
The first one is we all see it. What does the token price have to do with the underlying technology? That's the first problem. There doesn't seem to be a link between often what the token price is and what the technology is that's under that token. Or for that matter, some of these tokens, like these old coins, don't have any technology under them. They're like poker chips. They're sort of for gambling. So that's one issue. The second issue is this premise. Like maybe this decentralized finance is just, or decentralized decision making and fact checking it just doesn't really work
Hmm.
because crowdsourcing didn't really work. At the end of the day, it doesn't really work. What's the other thing? The third thing would be the slow adoption rate. I still remember the .com era, and man, there were guys out there like, this is going to make grandma's drugs cheaper. This is going to do this for you. This is going to help Joe's six pack. This is going to make his life a lot better. This is going to even the playing field. But with crypto, all you hear is a bunch of engineers talking about all this like obscure stuff that you have to be an engineer to understand.
Hmm.
Nobody's sitting there going, this is going to help grandma buy her medicine better. Like we're still not seeing that. It's not converting. For example, yeah,
I like that. I like that. It was a gem because you were here and you were, of course, I was here too. When the .com bomb, the internet started to become a thing in the mid late '90s. When it's like, oh, the internet, the internet, the internet. I was like a teenager at that time, but you was an adult and you saw how that people was kind of adopting it, and you're saying, hey, with cryptocurrency, but some people are saying, hey, it's going to advance us. We're going to be able to do money transactions faster. It's going to turn the financial industry upside down on its head. What do you got to say that when you compare that?
Well, I think the problem that it's running into is the regulatory and the status quo problem. I think your biggest issue, and the problem is the people involved in crypto very much believe. In one hand, they love the government, but on the second hand, they somehow think that that same government that's all powerful and all knowing is going to let them print their own money and have their own currency and do all these things that the government without government involvement. And the government is not going to let you do that. I just this idea that we're going to be making our own money and I just don't think it's really going to happen. And you saw the Biden administration came out, I guess, 2 days ago with their, what did they call it? I had to write it down because it had this great name. The Framework for Responsible Development of Digital Assets. Wow, that's a mouthful. At the end of the day, what was the focus? Maybe the most important thing is they once again said the Treasury wants to make a digital dollar. What does that mean? That means bye-bye crypto because the government wants to control it. They're not going to let you run wild on your own. I mean, it may happen, but they're not going to let this so easily happen. And I think that's what you're running into. I think there is some adoption, like banks are certainly using certain blockchain to transfer money around a lot faster. There's a lot of high end stuff that's happening, but for a lot of people in your life, you don't see the benefit really. Like regular you and me, like I get up every day, I do I don't see how blockchain's doing anything for me. I see how the internet is doing stuff for me every single minute. But blockchain, maybe not. It's not as obvious.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we're running into a lot of that. I think again, going back to the adoption thing, I think, what do we get? We got the closest thing we got to something that everybody was kind of talking about a little bit was the NFTs. And that kind of died out as fast as it started. And at the end of the day, it was really a small group of people that was really involved in that. It's not getting disseminated. It's not being embraced by the public because the public, you need to know too much to be able to use it. There's just too many steps to climb up to get to it. I can remember when Netscape went public, the big joke was like, even an idiot like you can go on the internet now. And that no joke. That's what they were saying. And I mean, the people from Netscape were basically saying, you don't have to know how to read to use this thing and go on the internet. And this is going to totally level the playing field. You'll be able to compete with anybody with no money. All you need is an internet connection at Netscape, and you'll know as much as anybody knows. Now, that's not really true, but you at one point you had access to certainly an awful lot more information that you would normally than you were up to that point very rapidly. So there's like these issues are floating around, and I think they're the same issues. You could go back 5 years and we weren't getting fast enough adoption. There was the issue, is Big Brother going to let all these little brothers take over? I'm not so sure. That's probably the biggest thing I have trouble with. I just don't believe it.
And when you talk about the framework that Joe Biden put out, I mean, it was something I saw coming from a mouth. I mean, anybody can see that. I did not think the government was going to go out and say, hey, let's put our currency onto this system we really don't even know who owns or what do we know who's created from, and let's just do business there. And so what they're going to do is they're going to take it, they're going to copy it, they're going to figure out a way to reverse engineer it. That's what that framework said, is that we're going to find the biggest brains in the world and we're going to create our own system and we're going to run off our system. I knew that was going to happen, but I said, well, will that make Bitcoin more relevant, or will it just, it's just like, for prime example, I started this children's book series 7-8 years ago, right? When I came in, it really was nobody in that investing, credit, and insurance space, right?
Right.
Now you're seeing more people come along. Does that catapult me or does that drown you out? that's the thing that I was kind of looking at with, because with
Yes.
me, when you have more people doing something and you push more energy into a industry or a sector, it's kind of like, what's that old saying? All tides rise to boats, or whatever the case may be.
Right, right. A rising tide lifts all boats.
It's exactly, the rising tide lifts all boats. So it's like, hey, wait, we all get to go up with this wave, or does it come in and it just eliminates everybody else? So that was my thing. I was like, well,
Yeah,
does it make sense?
I agree with that's a great analogy. That's a fantastic analogy. I just think that's the issue. I'm way more having being a little older. I'm way more skeptical of and it may not be some. Don't get me wrong. It doesn't mean the government is like malicious in some way, but I think often they're when they address things, they either make things worse or they address it in a way that works better for them. Because if we're all using currency that they can't track, how are they going to tax us? How are they going to? They're not going to let that happen. That's like to me, that always was like the biggest. Like people talked about that, and like unless you believe the whole world, everything's just going to collapse, and the only thing that's going to be left is crypto. Um, but then again, the problem I have with that is then the internet's not going to work. So what are you going to do with your crypto?
Mhm.
You're like the internet's unplugged. That's it. We're like there's no crypto doesn't mean anything then. So I think that it's funny because a couple of people said that like this thing from the Biden administration was just kicking the can down the road again. It's the same old over and over again, and it didn't really do anything, and it didn't mean anything, like kind of like you said, and it I think that's a big issue. I think some of banks can look at this as a threat. Some people said I read this thing on Twitter the other day. A guy said you're not going to ask a guy who owns a taxi how great Uber is. You're not going to ask a hotel company to tell you about Airbnb. So why would you ask a banker to tell you about Bitcoin? Like they're just not going to like that no matter what happens.
Oh yeah.
And
So I got to ask you this question right now. If you are 30 years old, you see the state of cryptocurrencies right now. Do you dollar cost average and buy it out the dip? Start to put a little bit of money in every month, or do you just strap it, count your losses? What do you do?
I'm still like, and this goes probably with the stock market as well. Remember, whatever it was a couple months ago, the last time I was on, I told everybody, buy an e-bike, go sailing all summer, just forget about the market, come back after the election. And because it's just going to be a really rough market, it's going to drive everybody crazy, and you're not going to get anywhere, and you're probably going to lose a lot more money than you make. And so here we are moving along, and I think this goes for both crypto. I think I'd like to see a big wipeout yet. Like I always joke when Jim Cramer cries, it's time to buy. And so when he's on his knees on TV crying in the middle of a total wipeout, it's time to buy. Or it just we haven't quite gotten to that washout yet where everybody's just like I see like Bitcoin's been fluttering around that $20,000 range. Like there for it's rallied up, then it's back down, then it goes a little below, then it goes back up. It's kind of been stuck around there, and I usually you need like the bottom is going to be some like deeper low than anybody expects, and there's going to be a lot of screaming and crying. And that's we haven't quite seen that yet. We may be getting closer. We may be getting real close here because we're running out of time. The election's coming, so it's got to be before November. That's the way I look
Okay.
at it.
So you're looking at the turnaround in the market is probably going to be after midterms.
Yeah, after the midterms, and I think regardless of what happens, things will change or you'll get better direction. I think right now we have a lot of short-term issues that are impacting long-term views. For example, people are nervous and there's a lot of uncertainty. So they're not going to buy assets like digital assets because they're scared. So that plays in the role. Maybe in the long run, they may prove to be really like Bitcoin may be great because eventually they're not gonna print anymore. They're gonna be capped out at whatever it is 21 million or some. I don't know what the number is, but they're capped out. And maybe at that point, a Bitcoin may move up a lot or may start to change the way it trades once it's capped out. Um, but right now we have all this sort of short term stuff like press off. Just like if you look at the yield curve, the 2-year Treasury is higher than the 30-year. Now, a lot of people will tell you that's an inverted yield curve, and that means a recession is right around the corner. Well, I'd say we're already in a recession to some degree, or at least a slowdown.
Yeah.
But I'm not see. I don't think it's going to be like 2008. I don't think it's going to be some terrible recession. I just think it's going to be more like a nagging slow with certain sectors being disproportionately impacted. I think there's other stuff going on right now. So I'm looking at this and I say, you could nibble. I mean, if you're a long term guy, like it was Baron Rothschild, and he said, "Buy when there's blood in the streets."
There it is. There it is.
And the second part of that quote is, especially if that blood is your blood. So, because he was a Frenchman, and Napoleon had just lost the Battle of Waterloo, and people were like panicking in Paris, and he decided to buy because that blood was his blood. He just started buying. And I would say you're getting close. I wouldn't try to time the bottom if I just keep averaging in. And I think for most people who are long-term people, investors, at least in stocks anyway, you should just be buying and you should have this thing on automatic. You should just buy every month and, spend your time on your sailboat or your e-bike and spend your time with your kids or work and not worry about trying to time the bottom. I think that's, you're probably not going to hit the dead bottom.
Okay. Well, now we kind of tiptoed around this question, James. What are you doing? Are you buying it this time? Holding off? Buy?
I've been sitting.
Or sell?
You're right. I've been sitting because I have a lot of oil stocks. So I'm sitting because I know this winter is going to be really ugly. And there is not the capacity out there. There is not a lot of things, and they're doing a lot of stuff right now to get oil prices down, like releasing oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, and those kind of events. I mean, the head of Aramco, the Saudi Arabian oil company, said there's not enough capacity. If the economy picks up at all, we're going to be in huge trouble. There's no way to make enough oil, and this winter is going to be real tough in Europe. They're going to have a rough time. There's going to be a lot of shortages. There's people talking $150 a barrel on oil prices. Meanwhile, in the short run, it's going down. If you look at natural gas, it's the same thing. There's a huge shortage in natural gas, yet the price is down. Why is the price down? Because there's artificial short-term events that are impacting it. But in 3 months, it starts getting cold out, I think we're going to see these prices are going to skyrocket. So for
you
me,
still holding on oil?
Position, yeah, I'm just sitting waiting for I'm like But meanwhile, I drive my e-bike because I'm not going to pay $6 a gallon for gas either. So I'm riding around on my e-bike, but I own oil stocks, so I got them both ways because I'm like, there's no way I'm paying for all that stuff. And but I think if you're looking at a lot of technology stocks have really gotten beat up. I think you could start averaging in. I think I would dabble. I'm actually looking, thinking maybe not buying crypto directly, but buying the companies that are involved in it, like the Coinbases and the things like that. Whether I buy them directly or I buy them through some ETF, like Mr. Scaramucci is running here. He has one. It's called
ITCO.
Well, it's called the First Trust Skybridge Crypto Industry and Digital Economy ETF. Okay. That is a mouthful.
Yeah, I think the first one was BITCO or BIO or whatever.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, that's how they're trying to get everything back. So, yeah.
Well, I'm just thinking, you buy the thing, it's like at the low, like the low's like 450. I think it's 550 right now. The 52-week high is 27. I mean, if the thing goes to 10, you're like, you're in business. I mean, I look for a big score. I'd be looking for a lot higher than $10, but
let me ask you this question, James. So you only do ETFs? You wouldn't mess with the individual?
Well, I would
hop on that Robinhood app and just get those random ones that everybody's getting?
No, I think that's crazy. Unless you're really focused on something, one in particular that somehow, I think right now, first of all, the last thing that I hadn't mentioned yet is the major problem for crypto for somebody like me is crypto needs like a buttonwood agreement, like you have in with the equity markets. If you don't know what that is, in 1792, a bunch of 24 traders got together in New York and signed an agreement. From that agreement, that created the New York Stock Exchange and basically laid the foundation for the entire modern financial system. It's about a 6-line agreement. It's like 6 sentences. And what crypto needs something, because for example, when you go on different exchanges, the same crypto trades at different prices. There's liquidity issues. Who in the world wants? I like who wants to buy? Get stuck with a crypto and then you can't sell it. Like they're like the exchange shuts you down and you're not allowed to get your money out or whatever. Like those kind of that I can't deal with. There's no way that's unacceptable to me. There's other issues. For example, crypto has no regulation, so you and I could we could make our own crypto. We could make the Prince token, and we could open between the two of us 300 accounts and trade between the two of us. All those 300 accounts would trade this Prince token like 100 times a minute. So it would run up this huge trading volume, even though it's only two of us, and it's really not worth any money. Maybe we put $10 in this whole thing. The exchanges would pick it up because it has a high volume. They'd put it on an exchange, and then the greater fool theory would take over. In other words, it would be tulip mania all over. It would run this thing way up.
And then you pay media to run articles about it. Like, hey, look at the Prince token.
Absolutely, we plan it. We get Musk to buy it. We get whatever. Or some of those other. Who's the other guy? The guy who owns the Mavericks.
Mark Cuban.
Yeah, Mark Cuban. We get Mark Cuban to buy it. Whatever. We get whatever. The Yankee Stadium, you can buy a hot dog for a Yankee Stadium or some crazy thing like that.
Yeah.
Hot dog's like $15 at Yankee Stadium. So you get, you can, it's whatever, we promote it and it goes way up and then we get out way before anybody else does and then let the whole thing tumble and we just go, well, you know what? It was very speculative. Sorry, you mortgage your house on that thing, but that really wasn't a smart thing to do.
Mm-hmm. So before we head out of here, our time is up again. Definitely great having you on. What do you want to leave everybody there with?
Oh, I first of all, number one rule is the markets have ups and downs. Do not let a bad market dissuade you from continuing to invest. If you really believe in this stuff, buy it, but be really careful. I would stay away from the individual tokens right now. I would buy maybe stuff like look at companies like Coinbase and anybody else involved in this sector that's really involved. I would look at buying the companies as a way to buy the stocks of the companies that are involved in it as a way to play the sector. To me, that would be a lot safer. Just average in. They're all creamed right now, just like a lot of technology is creamed. I remember 2000. If you started buying more technology after the meltdown in 2000, I want to tell you, it was ugly for a long time, but in 10 years, you were a lot richer than you were. You were a lot richer. And you can't fall off the floor. When a $90 stock is $2, after a while, even Bear Stearns only went to $2 when it went out of business. It's still, after a while, you can only go to zero. You can't go to negative. So you sometimes you just get down there so low. It starts to your loss is not that much if it bombs out. And if you stick with the equities, a lot of these companies are going to survive no matter what. They'll do something out like MicroStrategies. They're big in crypto. I remember they were big in the internet. They'll do something new.
Okay. Well, that's our time, ladies and gentlemen. Until the next video, podcast, cartoon, book, or whatever else crazy you see me doing around the globe, y'all already know my name is Prince Dykes. I'm the Prince of Investing. Peace, be safe, I'm out, and thank you.